pick Sleeping Beauty, he decided. Interesting selection, Alex said, intrigued. What do you suppose the moral of that story is? Don't anger your neighbors, I guess, Connor said. Alex grunted disapprovingly. Be serious, Connor. That is not the moral of Sleeping Beauty, she reprimanded. Sure it is, Connor explained. If the king and queen had just invited that crazy enchantress to their daughter's party in the first place, none of that stuff ever would have happened. They couldn't have stopped it from happening, said Alex. That enchantress was evil and probably would have cursed the baby princess anyway. Sleeping Beauty is about trying to prevent the unpreventable. Her parents tried protecting her and had all the spinning wheels in the kingdom destroyed. She was so sheltered, she didn't even know what the danger was, and she still pricked her finger on the first spindle she ever saw. Connor thought about this possibility and shook his head. He liked his version much better. I disagree, Connor told her. I've seen how upset you get when people don't invite you places, and you usually look like you would curse a baby, too. Alex gave Connor a dirty look. Mrs. Peters would have been very proud of her. While there is no such thing as a wrong interpretation, I have to say that is definitely a misread, Alex said. I'm just saying to be careful who you ignore, Connor clarified. I always thought Sleeping Beauty's parents had it coming. Oh? Alex questioned him. And I suppose you thought Hansel and Gretel had it coming too. Yes, Connor said, feeling clever. And so did the witch. How so? Alex asked. Because, Connor explained with a smirk on his face. If you're going to live in a house made of candy, don't move next door to a couple of kids. A lot of these fairy tale characters are missing common sense. Alex let out another disapproving grunt. Connor figured he could get at least 50 more out of her before they got home. The witch didn't live next door. She lived deep in the forest. They had to leave a trail of breadcrumbs behind so they could find their way back. Remember? And the whole point of the house was to lure the kids in. They were starving, Alex reminded him. At least have all the facts straight before you criticize. If they were starving, what were they doing wasting breadcrumbs? Connor asked. Sounds like a couple of troublemakers to me. Alex grunted again. And in your deranged mind, what do you think the lesson of Goldilocks and the Three Bears is? Alex challenged him. Easy, Connor said. Lock your doors. Robbers come in all shapes and sizes. Even curly-haired little girls can't be trusted. Alex grunted again and crossed her arms. She tried her best not to giggle. She didn't want to validate her brother's opinions. Goldilocks is about consequences. Mrs. Peters said so herself, Alex said. Although Alex would never admit it, sometimes arguing with her brother was amusing. What do you suppose Jack and the Beanstalk is about? She asked. Connor contemplated a moment and slyly grinned. Bad beans can cause more than indigestion, he answered, laughing hysterically to himself. Ha ha ha! Alex pursed her lips to hide a smile. What do you think the lesson of Little Red Riding Hood is? She asked him. Do you think she should have just mailed her grandmother the gift basket? Now you're thinking, he said, although I've always felt sorry for Little Red Riding Hood. It's obvious her parents didn't like her very much. Why do you say that? Alex asked, wondering how he could have possibly construed that from the story. Who sends their young daughter into a dark and wolf-occupied forest carrying freshly baked food and wearing a bright red jacket? Connor asked. They were practically asking for a wolf to eat her. She must have annoyed the heck out of them. Alex held back laughter with all her might, but to Connor's delight, she let a quiet chuckle slip. I know you secretly agree with me, Connor said, bumping her shoulder with his. Connor, it's people like you who ruin fairy tales for the rest of the world, Alex said, forcing the smile on her face to fade. People make jokes about them, and suddenly the whole message is lost. Alex suddenly stopped walking. All the color in her face slowly drained away. Something across the street had caught her eye, something very disappointing. What's the matter? Connor asked, turning back to her. Alex was staring at a large house. It was a lovely home painted blue with white trim and had several windows. The front yard was landscaped to perfection. It had just the right amount of grass, patches of colorful flowers, and a large oak tree ideal for climbing. If a house could smile, this house would be grinning from ear to ear. Look, Alex said and pointed to a for sale sign next to the oak tree. A bright red stripe with the word sold had recently been added to it. It's sold, Alex said, slowly shaking her head from side to side in disbelief. It's sold, she repeated, not wanting it to be true. The little color in Connor's round face drained too. The twins stared at the house for a moment in silence, each not knowing what to say to the other. We both knew it would happen eventually, Connor said. Then why do I feel so surprised? Alex asked softly. I guess it had been for sale for so long. I figured it was just, waiting for us. Connor saw tears begin to form in his sister's eyes,